My dear NEET students, today I want to give you one of the most important updates regarding the NEET 2026 paper leak controversy. Across India, lakhs of students, parents, teachers, and medical aspirants are closely watching what is happening inside the Supreme Court. Many students are confused because social media is full of emotional opinions, political arguments, and rumors. So today, let us leave emotions aside for a few minutes and understand exactly what was discussed before the Supreme Court. Let us understand what the petitioners argued, what the government argued, what the NTA argued, what the judges observed, and most importantly, what all this means for students who are preparing for NEET. The matter reached the Supreme Court through petitions filed by medical organizations and associations representing doctors and students. One of the major concerns raised before the court was that this is no longer a simple paper leak issue. According to the petitioners, this has become a question about the credibility of the entire examination system. They argued that repeated controversies have damaged public confidence and that merely conducting another examination is not enough unless structural reforms are implemented. The petitioners even requested major restructuring or replacement of the National Testing Agency. They argued that unless accountability is built into the institution itself, similar controversies may continue in the future. One of the strongest moments during the hearing came when the Supreme Court questioned how another major controversy could arise despite the recommendations made after the previous NEET crisis. The court reminded everyone that expert committees were formed earlier, recommendations were submitted, reforms were promised, and assurances were given. Naturally, the judges wanted to know something very simple. If all these reforms happened, then how did another major controversy still emerge? The court directly questioned whether the recommendations themselves were insufficient or whether the implementation had failed. This became one of the central discussions of the hearing. Perhaps the statement that received the most public attention came from Justice P.S. Narasimha. During the hearing, he made an observation comparing NTA with UPSC. The court pointed out that UPSC conducts extremely large and important examinations year after year, yet such controversies do not repeatedly arise there. The judge remarked that NTA needs to learn. This was not merely criticism. It was a deeper observation about institutional culture, accountability, continuity, and long-term learning. The court appeared concerned that mistakes are being repeated instead of permanently solved. Another extremely important observation from the court was about accountability. Justice Narasimha essentially raised a question that many students across India are already asking. When a paper leak happens, who is actually responsible? The court observed that unless specific responsibility is fixed on specific duty holders, these problems may continue repeating themselves. The judges stressed that it is not enough to simply say that an institution failed. The real question is whether individual responsibility can be identified. Unless someone is clearly answerable for failures, institutional mistakes may continue to occur again and again. The court also discussed what it called the ad hoc nature of many institutions. This was one of the deeper and more philosophical parts of the hearing. Justice Narasimha observed that many institutions in India depend too much on temporary arrangements instead of creating permanent systems, permanent expertise, and institutional continuity. According to the court, strong institutions should not depend entirely on individuals. They should have systems that continue functioning effectively regardless of who is currently occupying a position. This concern became central to the court's discussion about the future of NTA. During the hearing, Dr. K. Radhakrishnan, who headed the monitoring committee created after the earlier NEET controversy, was also present before the court. He informed the judges that the committee had submitted around 35 long-term recommendations and nearly 60 short-term recommendations. According to him, many of these recommendations were already implemented. He stated that several reforms had worked successfully in other examinations. However, the court still questioned how the present controversy emerged despite all these efforts. This exchange became one of the most important moments of the hearing because it focused not on promises but on actual result. Representing the Government of India, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta assured the Supreme Court that the issue is being treated with utmost seriousness. According to the government, extensive reviews of the entire examination chain have already been conducted. This includes everything from printing presses to transportation systems and the final delivery of question papers. The government informed the court that vulnerabilities were identified and corrective measures were introduced. The center emphasized that protecting the future of students remains a priority and that reforms are actively being implemented. The National Testing Agency informed the court that major security upgrades have already been implemented. According to NTA, reforms now include stronger surveillance, tighter question paper handling procedures, improved digital security, enhanced coordination with law enforcement agencies, and redesigned transportation protocols. NTA's position is that lessons have been learned and additional safeguards are being introduced to ensure that the proposed re-examination remains secure and credible. The Supreme Court has now asked the Union government to submit an affidavit explaining how stronger institutional continuity and accountability can be created inside NTA. The court wants answers not only about what happened, but also about how future controversies can be prevented. In simple language, the court is asking the system to prove that this problem will not simply repeat again after a few years. Now let me share my personal analysis of this situation. The biggest advantage of the Supreme Court's intervention is that the issue has moved beyond social media debates and entered the highest judicial institution of the country. That creates pressure for answers, pressure for reforms, and pressure for accountability. If the court continues monitoring the matter, institutions may be forced to explain not only what went wrong, but also who was responsible and how similar failures will be prevented in the future. However, there is also a concern many students have. Will responsibility actually be fixed on specific individuals, or will the system simply produce another report, another committee, and another promise of future reforms? This is the question many students are asking today. Another important question is whether public trust can be restored. Trust is very difficult to build and very easy to lose. If strong reforms are implemented, transparency is increased, and accountability becomes visible, trust can gradually return. But if similar controversies continue repeating every few years, public confidence may suffer further. Many students feel that they are repeatedly asked to prove themselves through examinations, while institutions are rarely asked to prove themselves with the same level of scrutiny. Whether that perception changes will depend on what happens after this hearing, not just what is said during the hearing. This also raises a larger question about the future of examinations in India. Should India continue depending on a single high-stakes examination conducted on a single day using a fixed question paper distributed across the entire country? Or should India start seriously studying modern computer-based testing systems used internationally? For example, examinations such as the GMAT and the GRE are conducted using computer-based testing. Students can often choose from multiple testing dates across an extended testing window rather than depending on one single examination day. These systems use very large question banks and adaptive testing methods. As a student answers questions, the system can adjust the difficulty level dynamically. Strong performance may lead to more challenging questions, while weaker performance may lead to different questions. Because different students receive different question sequences from a large pool, large-scale paper leaks become significantly more difficult than in a traditional single-paper system. Another advantage of computer-based testing is speed. Results can often be generated much faster because the examination is already digital. In many cases, preliminary scores are available immediately or very soon after the examination. Such systems can reduce printing risks, transportation risks, storage risks, and many of the logistical vulnerabilities associated with large paper-based examinations. Of course, computer-based systems also have challenges. India would need reliable infrastructure, secure testing centers, strong cybersecurity, and equal access for students from urban and rural regions. Therefore, any transition would require careful planning and significant investment. I am not saying that the Supreme Court should immediately order the replacement of the current system tomorrow morning. That is a complex policy decision involving education experts, technology experts, governments, universities, and testing authorities. But I do believe that this controversy should trigger a serious national discussion about whether 21st century technology can help create a more secure, transparent, and student-friendly examination system. Whatever model India ultimately chooses, the goal should be simple. Honest students should never have to worry that their future depends on the failure of an examination system. However, my dear students, I want to tell you something equally important. Do not suspend your future while waiting for institutions to resolve their problems. Court hearings will continue, investigations will continue, political debates will continue, news channels will continue, but your biology chapters are waiting. Your chemistry revision is waiting. Your physics numerical are waiting. The students who remain calm during uncertainty are often the students who gain an advantage when the final examination arrives. And before I leave, I want to give every serious NEET student a practical opportunity. At aigodes.com, we have made available free mock tests that include questions based on the last 5 years of NEET examinations. If you are feeling anxious about the ongoing news, the best response is not worry. The best response is practice. Instead of spending another hour watching debates and predictions, spend that hour testing yourself against real NEET level questions. Discover your weak topics, measure your speed, measure your accuracy, build confidence through practice. Simply click the website link provided in the description below and take the free mock test. Remember, every question you solve today is one step closer to your dream medical college tomorrow.